The shaded region represents alpha. If the null hypothesis is true, then your t-test will reach this shaded region by accident only 5% of the time. That is to say, if there really is no treatment effect, you'll reach this shaded region with your t-test 5% of the time. Now, if alpha is 0.05 and it gets split in half, that means that 2.5% of the distribution is in each tail of the curve. So 2.5 on the bottom half, 2.5 on the top part. For analysis of variance, the probability distribution is one-tailed, and all of your alpha gets put into the upper tail. It's one-tailed because in ANOVA, all your computations get squared at some point, so any negative values that you get will turn into positive values, and that's why it's a one-tailed distribution. You also have to consider the two different types of degrees of freedom in an f-test, the numerator and the denominator, but for this combination, the critical value is 4.07. Any f-test that gets this high or higher will result in rejection of the null hypothesis. And this will only happen 5% of the time if the null hypothesis is true. But again, there's that caveat that you have publication bias and researchers actually cheating, or what we call p-hacking, in order to reach statistical significance on things that otherwise really are not significant. So we go back to the table, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make that correct decision of rejecting the null hypothesis up here based on the p-value. Okay, now I've made my own table with a little bit of extra annotation. So this is the exact same format as the previous table from the Welkowitz textbook. But my version has, some extra terms here. So we have false positive, false negative. A type 1 error is a type of false positive. That's thinking when there's something there when there's not. A type 2 error is a false negative. That's blindness to a real effect. Both of those are very real problems. Now let's try a power analysis with just this basic two-group t-test, independent samples t-test. So we compute a t-test using the data here, and you can see I've done all the calculations already. T equals 1.984, and it's a negative t-test because the control group, which is the second group, has a higher mean than the experimental group. The formula arbitrarily makes makes this particular t-test negative simply by virtue of the fact that the smaller value comes first. Really what you would do in real life is base it on your hypothesized direction. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that t-test result of negative 1.984 and I'm going to turn it into an effect size. This is my effect size that I'm using. I'm using the R statistic for the effect size simply because R is kind of easy to compute. You just plug in your t-test. It's t squared over t squared plus its degree of freedom. For this example, the degrees of freedom is 14. There were 16 total, 8 in each group, and we lose 1 degree of freedom per group. So I calculate the effect size, and then I can take that effect size and go to a simple power table like this. This is a power table that I scanned from Rosenthal and Rosnow's classic textbook, Essentials of Behavioral Science, 3rd edition, and they base their power table here on, they attribute it to the source, but at the bottom. But really, all these power tables and everything that we have about power today stems in one way or another from Jacob Cohen's work starting in the 1960s and proceeding through the 1990s. So, in order to calculate the power, just using this simple table, we first get the effect size, With the effect size in place, we locate the effect size across the top row here and use the appropriate column. Now I'm rounding off a little bit. Our effect size is slightly higher than 0.45, but you can see that it doesn't have the fine gradations of the scale here. And it's just an estimate, so this is good enough. So we'll go with 0.45, and we'll bring it down through that column. Now this particular study had a sample size of 16, so we match it with the sample size in the body of the table. The numbers inside the table are sample sizes that you need for any given level of power. And so my true effect size, or I should say the observed effect size, is slightly larger than this, and the actual sample size is slightly less than this. So on balance, I think that's probably pretty close to what we have in this hypothetical study. So the next step is we just carry the line over to the left-hand side where you see the column for power, and it tells me that my power would be about 0.50. So based on this particular study, my observed power for this effect size would be about 0.50. In other words, I'd have about a 50% chance of success if this was the real population value for the effect size. Of course, there's a problem with that when you're talking about observed power. I won't go into that here, but know that the observed power is not necessarily the same thing, or rather the observed effect size is not really the same thing as the actual population effect size. So what we're looking at here is the observed power for this study, but the real power could be something different, because there's no guarantee that this is the true population confidence interval, rather effect size. You'd have to do the confidence interval around this effect size. In order to get the effect size in SPSS, you need to do a couple of extra steps, because the t-test option does not give you the effect size for a study. What I did with the data set that I had on the board here a minute ago is I plugged it into SPSS and ran it as if it was a one-way ANOVA. Now you can use ANOVA with two groups. You get an F-test instead of a t-test, but they're actually telling you the same thing. So here's my F-test. And if I take that F-test and I take the square root, it'll give me t. You can see that if I take the original t-test value, which was 1.984, and I square that value, it gives me the same thing here as my F-test. So the t-test and the F-test really are equivalent in the two-group situation. If you have more than two groups, then you can't do a t-test on it. So this relationship doesn't work with more than two groups. But if you have two groups, it does work, and the relationship would be t squared equals f, or the square root of f equals t. And then the next thing we have is partial eta squared. And eta squared is an effect size. In the two-group situation, what you would do is just take that partial eta squared and take the square root of it. Take the root, and that gives you 0.469, and on the previous page we calculated 0.47 equals r. R equals 0.47. So these two are really the same thing. But again, that only applies to the two-group situation. In the two-group situation, r will be equivalent to eta. So when SPSS gives you eta squared as an option in your one-way ANOVA menu, you can choose that option in order to get the effect size, but you have to, of course, take the square root of that to turn it into effect size r. And then finally, it also tells us the observed power. And using the Rosenthal and Rosnow table, I calculated power to be 0.5. Well, here it says it's 0.455. So that's pretty close. I would call that a match. Let me move that little menu bar there. And so using the simple power table, we estimated power to be 0.5 approximately, and that's very close to what we got here at 0.455. And again, that's observed power for this study.